Who-dats. Welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Nabors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanle.
Proud of these guys.
You know, just like Mike Tirico in the broadcast, you kind of have to let that simmer because I know Saints fans, it still gives you goosebumps all these years later. Welcome to your Been There, Done That podcast. We have a good one today as I bring in my crew producer, Justin Thomas, my partner, Scott Shanle. We're going to have the great Roman Harper as well. So Shanle and Harper, two big members of that defense. I know you traded some tweets with Steve Gleason after that game, during that game. How special was that game, and how special is it going to be talking to Roman Harper in a little bit, Shanle?
Oh, it was extremely special. And I'm going to tell you, watching that game for the first time on TV copy was outstanding. And Steve's block punt, honestly, I rewound it and watched it about 3 times because I wanted to relive it. And I have mixed emotions because it is an outstanding play, one of the biggest plays in Saints history, everything it symbolizes. But it was also hard because you see Steve and the battle he's going through with ALS, but then you see what the type of special teams player he was and running around. And I've told Steve this many times. Steve's done more for me in my life than he's ever known because he'll thank me for giving a shout out to his foundation and things like that. But the perspective he gives me on life, the attitude that he continues to have with the battle he goes through, just makes me realize, man, no matter how bad a day I'm having, I have to be appreciative of every moment. And just watching that game made me think of that again. And it was one of those times. It was the loudest I've ever heard a stadium after that block punt. And to sit there, Mike Tirico nailed it when he didn't say a word and just kind of let the emotion of the crowd do the announcing for those 30 seconds. And it was, like I said, it was the only thing in the game that I watched the other night that I rewound it and replayed it and watched it over multiple times because it was a huge moment.
You know, my special mom died of ALS 3 years after that game. And it's such a tough disease and such a random disease. You know, some people can fight through it for a few years. Some people, it's only a year. But to watch Steve Gleason fight as long as he has and to stay engaged with the fans and to still do so much, Shanle, it just, to me, is representative of your group back in 2006 because that was such a special team. But Gleason's example really is the broadest of everybody's.
Yeah, when you look back at it, you see Fajita cause the fumble on Vic. There's a reason why Fajita never scooped and scored it. There's a reason why I think Brian Scott was right there, didn't pick it up. You start to look back at life and you realize sometimes the stars align for a bigger purpose, for those moments, for Steve to block that punt, for it to be a platform for him to speak about the resurgence and the rebirth, and to use that platform now to do all the great things he's doing for ALS. So there's a reason why sometimes things happen in life that you don't know it at the time, but looking back, and I alluded to how it's kind of hard to watch Steve back then run around and be that special teams demon. And, I did get emotional because he tweeted, he said, it's fun watching these games, but I'm not going to lie, I'm crying a little bit watching himself run. And I screenshot it, sent it to our group chat because I've often thought about it. I've raised that question to guys like, is it hard for Steve to watch himself run around and see himself like that? And it was for me because, nobody expects to be diagnosed with a disease like that. But if anybody has handled it the way you should handle it, it's been Steve Gleason, and look at all he's done for ALS.
Yeah, that's very well said. You wonder in life why some things happen to some people, and if anybody can handle it, it was Steve Gleason. It is Steve Gleason to this day. Shanle, you were in your mid-20s back then. I was in my late 30s. Now I'm in my early 50s. Justin Thomas, what were you, 8 years old back in 2006?
Hold on. I got to do the math real quick. 2006. I was about 21, I think 22.
Time flies. It's amazing. We're going to get to Roman Harper in just a second, but Roman Harper was part of that rookie class, and we're going to ask him about that, Shanle. But so many things about that game that nobody could have predicted, and we've touched on Steve Gleason, obviously, and the way he has handled his life. But when you look at all the faces and it really shows you something about life that you never really know what can happen. And so many great things happen to so many people after that and to the Saints organization. That's what was running through my mind watching that game, and I'm sure that went through yours as well.
Absolutely, because in 2006, it was really starting at the ground floor. I mean, we had so many new faces on that team. Coach Payton was trying to establish the culture he wanted. And the greatest thing he ever did, besides signing Drew Brees, obviously, but the greatest thing he ever did and Mickey Loomis ever did was they brought quality men into that organization. And that's what made going to work fun every day. And that's what made watching that game on Monday night so much fun is kind of reliving what we were all doing in 2006 and seeing the personalities out there on the field. And then it makes you think of some of the memories you had with those guys at training camp or during the season. And it just, we had so many quality people that we were able to go along that journey with. That's what really made us special.
All right, without further ado, we bring in the guest we've been talking about. Of course, we have Scott Shanle, but we have another member of that 2006 defense who got to go back and stroll down memory lane. We bring in the one and only Roman Harper. Roman, from Charlotte, North Carolina. First of all, I know Shanley's going through the coronavirus stay-at-home school stuff. You have 3 young ones at home. How's that going?
Oh, man, it sucks. Just being honest, flat out, it sucks. Like, it's just real, I pay for one kid's school, right? Like, one goes to private school, and I don't pay them for them to, like, video teach my kid. Like, you have to take all of my kids, like, all of it, all day long. And for us to have, like, 3 under this age of 8, it's really tough. And one kid is in Chinese. I sent that to the group chat the other day, and they were like, what the H is, like, what the F is that? So it's tough, man. We got one in Chinese. We got other ones doing other things. And my son's 3, and he just won't get out of the way of anything. And the biggest problem I have with my son right now is, like, he doesn't want to put on clothes. He just wants to be in his pajamas all day. And then he doesn't want to put underwear on either. I'm like, dude, like, I don't want to be like, come on, bro. Like
father, like son then, huh?
Yeah, man. Like, come on. Like, let's get, like, we're losing over here, and we're not winning this whole stay-at-home teaching thing.
So do you guys, you and the wife, decide, do you kind of divide the responsibilities? Like maybe one of you is good at math, one's at English. How do you work that out?
Yeah, so I work with London, our oldest. She's in 2nd grade, so I work with her most of the time and doing some other things. It's probably because I'm pretty computer illiterate and my daughter is pretty good at it, and she's able to do most of her stuff by herself. And then the kindergartner in Chinese school, Heather works with her mostly all day long. So Heather kind of writes on a board like everything they got that morning or whatever the whole day, and then we just go through it and check it all off. But how is this, though? Today they have spring break. They started spring break. I'm like, spring break when you're at home in quarantine? Like, what? Like, what does that even mean? So, yeah.
All right, I have you and Shanle here. And Shanle, we talked about this at the top of the podcast about going down memory lane. How emotional was it for you? Because I obviously didn't play. It was kind of emotional for me watching it. Was this something, A, you were looking forward to watching? B, had you ever seen the replay of it? And C, how emotional was it? I mean, give me the whole kind of package of what went through your mind.
Sorry, Stanley. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was extremely I was emotional. I think as years go by, I appreciate that game even more. And that was the first time I ever saw the TV copy. We don't watch it. We don't watch a whole lot of TV copies. And for me, I didn't remember most of that stuff even happening. I knew we beat them. I didn't know we beat them down, like really, really contained Mike Vick. I was excited about telling my kids, hey, that guy you play with on Madden that you tell me is unstoppable, go ahead, watch this game, see what we did to him. Your old man at one time could play some football. Go ahead and watch this. And they're like, oh, wow, you tackled Vick. Great. Now let me go back to doing what I was doing before. But I was looking forward to watching it.
I agree with Shanle on all of that. Like, I had never watched the TV copy either. Like, I didn't remember all of the things that went on in that game. I was so young. That was my rookie year. It was my first game in New Orleans. I was just, in all honesty, I was just happy to be playing against Michael Vick. That was my biggest thing, was that, man, Mike Vick's on the other side. I'm like Shanley's kid. Like, I was only playing with Mike Vick on Madden for all these years. So that is just who I was excited to play against. And you look up, and I didn't know we beat them that bad either. It was like a beat down. Like, it wasn't even close. When we looked up, that defense we had that night was played a dominant, amazing performance. Shanle even had that tackle when Mike tried to shake you on the outside. I'm like, see, Shanle did it too. You were always bragging on Vegeta on the group chat, but you did your thing too.
Shanle, you were saying that though. You were surprised. You remember how well you guys played, but maybe not to the level of what you played.
No, because I remember we won the game, and that was obviously the most important thing of that night. But as I was watching the game, because like Harper and I just both agreed, we don't really remember. We played in so many games, you don't remember how they all unfold. They didn't breathe any sign of life. I think Vic had one nice scramble late in the game, but all I remember from watching that game,
he took me on that one. It's okay.
Yeah, you let him get in space, and it's all done. I didn't remember Algie Crumpler dropping the touchdown, which would have made a closer game. But that game, man, they didn't breathe any life, like any life. My takeaway after watching that game the other night is all the dejected sideline shots they had of the Falcons players after 3 and out. So we had to pat ourselves on the back after that.
Yeah, man. Not only that, but Shanle, bro, for anybody that wants to question me, bro, I looked so fast in that game. I'm not gonna lie. I was freaking flying around. I was like, I called my brother. I'm like, dude, I look really fast. Like, rookie year Roman is freaking flying his butt off around here. Like, I was fast, dude. And I didn't know anything about what I was doing at all. But I mean, I was just like running around. You know how it is when you're young, you just play.
When you don't know what you're doing sometimes, Mike, sometimes as a player, when you don't know what you're doing, that's sometimes when you make the most plays and you look the fastest because you have this anxiety about, man, I don't want to be wrong. So you just run around as fast as you can and try to make all the plays you can.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I thought I was doing. That's what it looked like to me.
You know, the broadcasters have their notes when they do play-by-play, kind of their boards where they have the roster and they have the numbers and they have notes under each guy. And I don't know if you saw this, but Roman, but Mike Tirico put out his board from that game on his Twitter. And under Roman Harper, it almost acted like the coaches had said, you were a little slow to adjust in training camp, but you made a comeback, as Joe Theismann said in the broadcast here.
Hey, man, it was. So that wasn't all my fault. In training camp, those coaches had me playing like 4 positions. Like, who does that to a rookie? I mean, I had to play safety. They had me at dime linebacker. They had me at a nickel. They had me doing all kinds of stuff. And then I was playing along Josh Bullock's, who we all know wasn't like a very loud communicator. So you had me, who didn't know anything. Then you had Josh, who wasn't like a loud communicator. Bro, I remember the first time they put me in the starting lineup beside Josh, I messed up like 30 times. And because I was younger than him, I got blamed for it. I'm like, he messed up too? But like, it didn't matter. It was bad. And then I was back on the second team like the next day.
But let's hear Joe Theismann. Let's hear Joe Theismann give you some love during the broadcast. Though, here's what Joe Theismann had to say about Roman Harper in the 2006 Monday night game.
This is Josh Bullock and Roman Harper again. Algie's working to the middle. You see Harper close. They like Harper. Alabama guy, started 3 years down there. Really won the job. When you think about Sean Payton, he let his players go out and win jobs. Just because you were a veteran didn't mean you had one.
See, I wasn't criticizing you. I was just telling you what the coaches said early. But then they like Roman Harper. Boy, that was a Nostradamus, huh? Nice comment by Joe Theismann, Roman.
Man, if we only knew, right? Like, it was funny, though, to sit up here and hear them talk good things about me. I was very appreciative of it. And, man, who starts at Alabama for 3 years nowadays and doesn't already leave for the NFL, right? Like, most people only start like 1 or 2 years. Then they dip. Look at me. It was there 5 years with a red shirt, starting 3 years and still didn't leave. How about that? So how times have really changed. And it's crazy that I was able to have the ability to start and just play. And, you know, I was so happy. I was looking up and I'm literally watching Vegeta line me up at dime linebacker because I wasn't even supposed to play dime linebacker. I think back of it. Brian Scott got hurt, like pulled his hamstring and was crying on the sidelines while doing the the bike because he couldn't play against his old team. It was all emotional. So then I had to go play dime linebacker. Omar Starmeyer came in and played safety. And that's how we finished for the next couple of weeks until I tore my ACL.
Theismann mentioned in the broadcast, but Shanle, I want to bring we'll get your perspective in Romans as well. But this was a total remake of the Saints team, as you guys know. I mean, Dante Stallworth is out, Marcus Colston's in. You had over 20 new players, and you really had to earn it at Millsaps. I mean, how much did that play? And I know the preseason was tough, but what was the difference in this football team knowing that you were kind of all on the edge and had that mindset?
Joe Vitt used to call us all a bunch of mutts, a bunch of guys nobody wanted, no teams wanted, and we all had that chip on our shoulder because we all had something to prove. We didn't have a bunch of guys who were established, New Orleans Saints, even Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees had to prove to the NFL he was a franchise quarterback and he deserved the contract that they gave him. So you look at every single position, there were a ton of guys. They traded for me a couple weeks before the season. They traded for Semino right before the season. The list just goes on and on of guys that could say nobody wanted me. I want to prove to people that they messed up, and I think that was kind of our rallying cry that in 2006. And in just looking at our team, I think everybody picked us to finish last in the NFC South. They picked us to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. We went all the way to the NFC Championship game, and that team was not that talented compared to the teams that we would end up playing on in New Orleans. So it was a group effort as far as we had a lot to prove, and every single week everybody went out on the field to prove that this was a different New Orleans Saints team, but individually everybody's going out there to prove to each other that they could play in the NFL and play at a high level.
I agree completely. I went into this pretty wide open. This was my rookie year, so things that stand out to me is that I remember Drew Brees getting there, like when we had like the OTAs mini camp type stuff, like early. Like Drew couldn't throw a ball 15 yards. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, we're about to like get smoked this year. Am I lying, Stanley? Remember, like you were there, sorry. But he couldn't throw past like 15, 20 yards, like when I first got there. And I'm like, this is our quarterback? Like we are going to be in some real trouble. Then everything started to change and he started getting better. Then we made some trades. Dante got let go. Dwight Smith got let go. And then, we do some other things. We bring it in. Training camp was awful. It was terrible. Luckily, Shanle only had a couple weeks of it, but we had like a lot of it, and it was pretty bad. And then we were playing, and nobody really gave us a chance, and we won our first 2 games. And then after that Atlanta Falcons game, it felt everything had just changed, and that team was so good, and we were so together. I was a terrible rookie at times, but overall, I think that team really had a lot of fun. I think it really kind of helped establish the foundation of everything that we wanted to do, and it kind of set the goal. Like they had so much success our first year that like ever since then we were just trying to get back, and we had a couple 8-8 seasons before we finally broke through. But I think that was the remake of everything that changed everything. And you look at that game, like during that game, you didn't realize that was the changing of everything. Like New Orleans Saints had never been known as a winning organization until that night. Right? Like Steve Gleason, that punt, that block, everything changed everything, the whole dynamic of that city and that organization. And we can honestly say we were there for it.
I want both your answers to this, but I mean, you talk about, having fun with your teammates and seeing things you didn't notice before, but from an emotional standpoint, knowing that where the team went after that to win a Super Bowl, so many great things for so many guys. How emotional was it though, watching it? I mean, you had to have that part of you as well?
I think I just watched that game knowing that we were able to start with Coach Payton in 2006 when nobody had any expectations for the New Orleans Saints. And to me, that was just a huge brick, maybe the most important brick in the foundation we were laying, because like Harper alluded to, I don't think we end up having the success we had in 2009, winning a Super Bowl without putting all those grueling days in Millsaps College. I mean, Coach Payton always said, we have to put you through hell a little bit so that you invest more, because when times get tough, you'll be less likely to give in. And man, nobody was giving in after those training camps we went through in Millsaps. So it was emotional watching that game, because I think it was a huge stepping stone in pointing us in the right direction and getting us over the hump in the national perspective and media's eyes as, this New Orleans Saints team is a little bit different than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and emotionally for me, it was just looking at Gleason,
Yeah.
Seeing Will was still out there, seeing people like Charles Grant too, seeing people like Willie Whitehead, Rodney Leslie, seeing BY being able to run around. BY had like a hell of a game. Like, I'm like, dude, all these people are so much more older now and grown up. Sean Payton looking like his son Connor was
He
crazy.
did.
I mean, he looked like dead, or he looked like high school Connor right now. So it's just crazy. Like, you look back at all those things, and Drew having all the hair, and it was great, man. And I just so thankful. Even Lance Moore looking like he was 12. So it was just really entertaining for me emotionally for that part of it, and actually being able to share that with my kids. My kids are young, so they never really got to see dad play football. Like, I didn't get married and have kids till later, and my son's 3 years old, and he saw me make that play against Algie Crumpler. He was so excited. To me, that's where my emotion came from. Was like seeing my son, how excited he was. Like, Daddy, you knocked that ball down, Dad. You're so good, Dad. And like, he never thinks that. So for me, that's when it really came full circle for me, was allowing my children to share this moment with me, and really seeing that how happy it made them to see that their daddy and their father really was a football player, and the things that I was able to do.
Roman, Reggie got so much hype out of USC, Heisman Trophy winner, the number one guy in that class. But did you look at that game thinking, man, our class was great? And it's amazing how so many of those guys played for so many years. I love the image in the national anthem of Streif, who was inactive, standing next to Deuce McAllister. That's the broadcast team now. I mean, it's amazing how much has happened. But that rookie class you had, I know you take a lot of pride in that.
Oh, man, I love that. I love those guys, man. Not only that, but even Rob Ninkovich, who didn't get to last with us, but still played 10-plus years. Everybody in that whole class played 10 years. It's crazy as that sounds, that like never happens anywhere. The guys that made it, we all played 10 years or more. Looking at the way Colston played, even seeing Colston the other night show some emotion and spike the ball. Like, I don't think he ever did that the rest of his career. And I was joking with Rob Ninkovich during the game, like, how much money do you think Colston missed out on because he didn't talk? Like, if he would have been a big personality wide receiver, he probably would have got paid more, but he never said a word. So he just kind of just flew under the radar. And,
that's probably why he wasn't a Pro Bowler too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And, Reggie having all the hype, and everybody knew who Reggie was, but the first one to start was Jari Evans, who also probably be one of the guys that maybe has a chance to go to the Hall of Fame. And that class, and then I came second round, and everybody cut the TV off after Reggie was drafted. Everybody in New Orleans, they were happy. They were cool. They cut the TV off. And most teams, organizations fly in their first and second round pick. Well, they just flew in there first because I was still at Alabama. So it was cool, man. I was just so proud of those guys. And it's been a luxury, man, to say that those are my teammates. And that was part of my draft class. And we are part of the draft that really got everything turned around for the Saints organization. And I hope that they could do the same thing with that whole Marshawn Lattimore, Ramczyk, and Alvin Kamara draft class as well.
I love your story on Alvin Kamara's number 41. Now, you are the originator, but there are a lot of 41 jerseys. I like to give you a hard time about that. But tell who didn't watch our errands segment, the New Orleans Saints do, where we run errands together and get to know athletes from the Saints. But you have a great story about how Alvin Kamara got the number 41.
Yeah, and look, even just the other night, I put something on Instagram when my kids were wearing my 41 jersey, and they were like, and somebody wrote a message on my Instagram like, I thought Alvin Kamara was 41. Like, oh, they must really like. I'm like, dude, like, oh my gosh. But anyway, so for those that don't know, so they drafted Alvin Kamara, and they also drafted Marcus Williams in the same round. Marcus Williams, a second-round pick. Alvin Kamara, a third-round pick. And the two numbers that they had for running back and DBs that year just happened to be 41 and 43. So we had Marcus Williams. They didn't want to give him number 41. Then everybody would compare him to safety as, the next Roman Harper, or they was like, dude, we just didn't want to put any kind of pressure or that kind of disrespect. Like, we didn't want to do that. It just seemed too weird. And then 43 was for Kamara. They were like, dude, we can't do that because that's like Sproles. So they just switched them up. They gave Marcus Williams 43 and gave Alvin Kamara 41. So that's how all the jersey sales are up. But I'm happy because I like seeing 41 all over the place because, every so often you'll see somebody like point to me and like, oh, I got the throwback version. So it's still cool, man. I just appreciate the Saints and all their crazy fans because they're so loyal. They are the best fans and some of the best fans in all of football. And it really is a college type of atmosphere because of all the fun that you have there.
Be honest, Harp. How often when you see a 41, do you peek at the back on the nameplate just to make sure that it's not Kamara or Harper?
Every time, Sam. Every time. All right, every time. The real telltale is if you ever see a Reebok. Any Reebok is me.
Yes.
Right? Reebok's all me. All right. The Nike ones, I still got a couple fresh Nike ones, but it's just hit or miss. You know what I mean? So, but you're right. I do check all of them out. I do.
This is for both you guys. I'll give you a little time to think about it. And you touched on some of this stuff, but when you look back at the 2006 game, I've never seen the replay either. But watching the game, a few things kind of stuck out to me in terms of surprises. Now, you can go off the board, or one of these can apply to you. I was surprised Morton Anderson was the friggin' kicker for the Falcons. I'm like, wow, I forgot about that. Curtis DeLoach, after he scored the touchdown off the Gleason block punt, he had some ups, man. Nice celebration. And then I forgot about how Sean Payton chewed him out for that late hit on the sideline, too. So it was kind of the tale of two plays for him. And then you mentioned Brian Young. I mean, he was like Reggie White in that game. He was all over the place. So is there something about that game when you watched it? Maybe it was a story, you guys in the huddle, something that brought back memories. Was there one thing that kind of stood out more than anything else that surprised you?
For me, no, I think Harp said it the best, and he really put it in perspective. When I was watching the game, the things that were fun to watch were obviously seeing Steve's play again, reliving that moment. But like Harp said, a lot of time goes by so fast, and seeing Brian Young playing defensive line, who's now a defensive line coach for the Saints, and he's got knee issues now, but seeing him make plays out there, obviously seeing Will Smith out there, and just reliving those moments, it's almost like you get into a time machine. You get to go back 14 years and you relive those moments, and it's more personal than it is when you're not watching the game. So I think just watching that, feeling 26 again is a pretty cool moment. But it's emotional on both sides of it because it's happy and it's sad because there were a lot of great moments that we were able to spend with Will after that game, but unfortunately we should be spending a lot more moments with him. And there's a lot of emotional things as you get older because tragedies like that happen, and it's hard. It's hard because you have to live with that forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Life is sensitive, man. It's very and it's not promised. And I think the biggest thing I kind of take from it was that, like I said, how fast I was, just being selfish. Like, dang, I was fast. That I actually made some pretty good plays, and that I do not remember. It's amazing how many plays you make over your time of your career that you don't remember at all. And the thing that I really enjoyed was watching this one play where nobody's going to notice it, but this offensive lineman is trying to block me, and I'm like holding on. I'm kind of tussling with him. And then Omar Stoudemire gets up and like gets in this guy's face. Because I'd never forget. So most people don't know this. The first time I had this real NFL type moment was the first game we played, and that was in Cleveland. Kellen Winslow was like caught a pass on me and was talking all this trash. And in college, like the refs didn't let people talk trash to you like that. So he like called me all kinds of words and the N word and this, and talk bad about my mom. And I was looking at the ref like, are you going to like stop him? And the ref just looked at me like, what are you doing? Like, and then Omar Stoudemire came and got in his face after one time and like talked real greasy to him. He's like, yeah, Rook, this is how you got to do it out here. I'm like, oh, so this is what happens, right? This is trash talking. So then like I tried to do it in the Atlanta game against this lineman, and it really didn't work out well, and Omar still came to my back. So I'm like, man, Omar's still looking out for your boy. Like, OG, like, oh. Like, I remember how much they look after me so much my rookie year. Like, Omar, Stoudemire, Jason Kraft, and Jay Bellamy. Like, those guys, I am forever indebted to them because of the way they looked after me as a rookie.
I want to get – Go ahead.
Also, Mike McKenzie announcing the starters. Hilarious.
That was great. And if you know Money Mike, it was hilarious. Mike McKenzie's the same guy who wore sunglasses under his football helmet at practice one day. When I first got to New Orleans, I'm like, what are we doing around here? I played for Bill Parcells. And if Parcells ever saw a guy with sunglasses under his football helmet, that guy getting an apple and a roadmap, he is out of there. And I was like, I loved Mike. Mike was a great personality for us guys and tying us all together.
Yes, he had him on the meeting too. That was my first little, as a rookie. I'm like, dude, you can wear shades inside and act like you're not paying attention at all. Then when they passed him the playbook, he was like, "Oh, I don't look at that thing. I don't know." He's like, that thing's wrong. I'm like, playbook. He's like, I don't look at that stuff. Nah, that's wrong. I was like, okay.
And then when he got in the game, all he did was make plays, and that's when you realize there's different levels. You know, the tier system in the NFL. If you're making plays on Sunday, you can wear sunglasses under your helmet at practice. Not everybody can do that.
Yes.
I'm going to jump into Harp with the NFC South. I got about 3 rapid fire questions for him. Harp, thumbs up or thumbs down on the Buccaneers and Falcons uniforms?
You know what? I kind of like the Falcons one. I hadn't seen the Buccaneers that much, but Tampa Bay, I mean, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
I mean, Tampa Bay's going to have high jersey sales because of Tom Brady and Tom Brady alone. That
leads me into my next question. Are you scared of Tom Brady being in the NFC South and pushing the Saints?
I'm not scared because I'm not playing, but it's definitely some concern. Like, you're not going to just roll through the NFC South. Atlanta should be better. We don't know about Atlanta. Atlanta, they always take a couple years off here and there, right? So this year they should be better because they took last year off. Tampa Bay, though, look, man, Tom Brady gives that organization, that team, and everybody around him confidence that they never had before. Like, there's no way I'm trying to let Tom Brady get hit, right? Because that could be his last hit. You don't want to be that offensive lineman that's known to get Tom Brady's back, his blind side blown up, right? Like, you don't want to be known as that. So I think everybody around him is going to elevate their game, and I think he's going to hold everybody accountable to that level. And I think they got a great head coach in Bruce Arians who does a lot of great things for a lot of great people. So I like a lot of things that Tampa Bay's doing. I just want to see how their defense is going to be.
Yeah, their defense was pretty good last year with Bulls. They just couldn't overcome all those turnovers by Jameis. But, I said to Mike, I've said to a lot of people, the biggest thing Brady's going to bring to Tampa Bay is hope. And when you got that guy at quarterback and everybody believes you can win every Sunday, it's a powerful thing. But let's jump to your team in Carolina. What has been the reception of Teddy Bridgewater so far, media-wise?
I think so. It's nothing on Teddy, right? Everybody loves Teddy. Nobody says anything bad about Teddy. Everybody's just in shock that Cam Newton's not going to be the quarterback going forward, and that they don't know and completely trust that Matt Rule and David Tepper are like geniuses, right? Like you're going to have some questions when you let somebody like Cam Newton just walk, right? When all year, everything leading up to it, you said he was going to be your quarterback. Then on a random Tuesday morning, you sign Teddy Bridgewater and tell Cam Newton to go seek a trade. Like, when that just kind of happens out of nowhere, it's going to be a lot of questions. Not only that, but you got a lot of college coaches on this staff. And when you hear, defensive staff talking about, oh, we're going to do like positionless football, right? Like, what does that even mean? This is not basketball. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you got to have guys that have an identity and know what they're doing. And we got to have some kind of structure. And so I think they're going to use a lot of analytics, and they're throwing out a lot of fancy terms. But when you say analytics, does that mean, all right, we're going to go for it between the 40-yard line and the 40-yard line all the time? Or are you going to, on second and third down when they're in I-strong formation, they run the ball 80% of the time? Because Shanle and I we know that we understand that part of it. But if you're doing the other thing and you're using analytics because you should go for it on this, this, and this, I think you need to do that in practice all the time to make your team comfortable. So now they understand what they're getting themselves into. Because as players, as long as we know what we're signing up for, we're willing to do it. But you can't be just throwing things out there on us from time to time, right?
But my thing, Roman, is if you look at the division, the Bucs get Tom Brady, which by hearing you guys talk, it's almost like Babe Ruth going to the Expos. I mean, you throw him on the Bucs. I mean, it was kind of that scenario, it seems like. But if you put Brady on the Bucs, I mean, their offensive line's not that great. They don't have a running game. Is there any question with you guys the Saints are still the favorite? Because it's such an all-around team, and with Emmanuel Sanders and the upgrades they've made in free agency, I think even though Tom Brady's in Tampa, I still think the Saints are the favorite. What do you think, Roman?
I still think the Saints are the favorite. My biggest question with the Saints, it's not the offense. Well, it is in the fact of, are Drew and them still going to be able to be explosive offensively? They lack explosiveness offensively. They need more explosive plays. And then that is how you can play fast break offense and make teams have to play catch up on defense or offense on the other side. And then defensively, you can create turnovers. This Saints team was not great at creating turnovers last year. They do not get after. They don't rush the passer well unless they blitz, right? Cam Jordan does well, but who's on the other side? And I'm tired of hearing Street talk about Davenport and pressure percentage. That don't work, right? I don't want to hear about it. And you know I was going to say it, Stanley. You knew it. I don't want to hear about it, right? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about it. I need to get the quarterback on the ground. And when you hit the quarterback, get the ball out. So to me, like, that is where I question. And also, if you continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, that's the definition of insanity. Like, the Saints still look the same the last couple years and just continue to do this. Oh, we're going to run it back. Oh, we're going to make it this year. Oh, we're going to. So at some point, like, something has to change to be able to get them over the hump. I don't know exactly what that is. So that's what I'm afraid of as well. It's like, we continue to do the same thing and expecting a different result, and we're not getting it. So what is it? What are they missing? Like, what is that extra to get them there? And trust me, they're on the clock. This has to be the year. And we've said that the last 2 years, but they're definitely still the team to beat. But their time is definitely dwindling.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Saints team is definitely the team to beat, but their margin of error has gotten a lot less with the NFC South. You know, these are teams you got to play twice a year. And for them to get better, it makes your run more difficult than we've seen the past 3 years in your own division. But I agree with Harp. You got to have more explosive plays on defense, and that's taking the football away. And the most overrated stat in football is total defense. You know, how many yards you're giving up. It's points per game. Are you giving up points, and are you taking the ball away and giving your offense more opportunities? Because we won a Super Bowl. We were ranked 24th in the league with total defense, but also you're facing a lot of garbage yards at the end of games if you're up by 40.
We would play 4-minute defense. Yes. We would play 4-minute defense just because our offense wouldn't try to, like, not score. They wouldn't run the ball. So we would just, like, leave the clock.
Exactly. So total defense is a wasteful stat. It's points per games, and are you taking the ball away? That's the defense. But the Saints team has won a lot of games the past couple of years because they're extremely talented and they're very fundamentally sound. But they got to start taking the ball away. And Drew Brees' arm is not going to get any stronger. So those big, deep down the field plays that we saw with Devery Henderson over the years, those are the plays they're lacking in this offense. But where you can get that is having home run plays by guys who can do it. Alvin Kamara, explosive. He's got to get back to being the player he was 2 years ago. Getting those big plays in the screen game and the running game, that's what this offense is missing. That's how they need to get back to those big explosive plays and blowing these games open.
You know, Roman,
I think they missed Mark Ingram too, though. I think Mark Ingram brought a lot of energy to that locker room. And he's a great screen running back as well. Very underrated out of the backfield. So I just – the dynamic offensively, Shanle, you are so correct, man. I think offensively they need more explosive plays, but defensively as well. Creating the turnovers, they definitely lack that.
Yeah, the momentum swings, the plays where you just suffocate the other team. And, you know, the other thing, we talked about watching the game Monday Night Football – how many run plays did Coach Payton call? Maybe you need to get back to that formula a little bit more because he was grinding that ball out to a 23-3 win. We've said it over the years. Start running that ball a little bit more, especially with the O-line you have.
You know, Shanle had his rapid fire. I'm going to have some quick ones for you, Roman. Okay. Right. I talked to, you know, Shanle and I go back and forth on this. Okay. And maybe it's selfish for me, but I'd love to see Taysom as a starter one day. I think it'd be fun. And Shanley's like, I don't really see it. Is that accurate, Shanle? Is that an accurate portrayal of your opinion?
That's extremely accurate, yes.
Okay. All right. So break the tie, Roman. Is Taysom going to eventually be the starter, or is it going to be the Swiss Army knife forever?
I mean, according to Sean Payton, he is, but I got to see him throw the ball and complete passes.
Mohamed Sanu has more completions than Taysom Hill in the NFL. Go ahead,
and that's a scary stat, dude. That's scary, all right? But at one point, Phillip Rivers didn't have any completions either, right? Because he sat there. And so did Aaron Rodgers for a couple years. So
break the tie.
And he's 30.
I look, man, I still got to see it. I can't cast a vote yet because I
Wow.
haven't. There's not enough evidence out there for me. Mike, let's do it in another year.
Okay.
And because like at the end of the day, if Taysom was that good in the future, why did they put in Teddy Bridgewater last year when Drew got hurt? Like
Yeah,
why?
True.
Like they made that decision for me right there. I'm like, if he's this and he's that, then why didn't he play? And why?
It's called
They traded for Teddy Bridgewater for a reason. Everybody needs to go back 2 years ago to that preseason game where Taysom couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and then
when they wanted him to be the backup, they tried to make him the backup that day, and he was awful. He was bad.
Sometimes I get ganged up in this podcast. I feel that way right now. So I'm going to move forward. Roman Harper is my favorite interview of the Sean Payton era. I think Roman Harper should be on Monday Night Football instead of Booger McFarland. I would take you, Roman. I think you would be tremendous. I'm going to be your agent. We're going to work on that. But when I talked to Drew Brees at the Pro Bowl this year, I promise you, man, he had something working with TV. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. We've heard the stories about him telling his teammates, I'm going to retire. I think Drew's going to be on Monday Night Football one day. What kind of announcer do you think Drew Brees will be? Because I also asked him, I said, can you be critical being, just a few months removed from the game? And he said, what do you mean? And he didn't like my question. He almost turned it as, I can say things in a way where I don't have to be critical. Now, that's not Chris Collinsworth. That's maybe more Tony Romo-like. But what kind of announcer do you think Brees would be if he's on Monday Night Football or one of these big jobs?
So the thing that I would really enjoy is that, so most people don't know this. So when Kurt Coleman was with the Saints, Kurt had the whole team come over to his house that he built here in Charlotte, and they had dinner over there for everybody, and they invited me. So I was over there hanging out with all the guys too. And so Tom Brady or the Pittsburgh Steelers or somebody, they were watching the game, Sunday night game, because the game was a Monday night game or whatever. So the Sunday night game, they're watching it over at Kurt's house. And I'm like, Drew, here, walk me through this 2-minute drill. Like, I would love to hear Drew just pick Drew's mind on a 2-minute drill. It was absolutely amazing. He's like, okay, sorry. So right now, this type of minute, how many timeouts? Got it. All right. Right now, I'm just thinking about trying to get completions. Just move the ball. We got plenty of time, blah, blah. So he's just giving me the mindset of a quarterback. So that is the things that what separates Romo is that's what people just want to hear. They just want to hear what the quarterback thinks. And then all of a sudden he's right, like Romo is, he's just checking it to whatever, just doing a box count. That's easy for Drew and those quarterbacks because that's all they do, right? So it's really easy when he opens it up and he's looking at coverages, he's telling me exactly the coverage they're in. He's like, this is just 2-man. They're just running da. He calls it something different, but I know what he's saying. And so he's able to if he'll be able to continue to dumb it down and not speak to me, but continue to speak to the normal population of people, I think he's going to be great at it because he's really, really smart. He studies film all the time. He can't help himself because he's a creature of habit. And anything he does, he tries to be the best at. So he would be really good at it. But I'm being honest with you, Mike. You want to talk about Drew Brees being an announcer? Bump that. You're not going to skip over my man, John Vilma. John Vilma, Monday Night Football. I'm putting it out there. Let's go, Shanle. Let's go, man. My man, Vilma. Why they not giving my man, Vilma, some love?
Oh, the guy used to call a butthole back in the day.
I mean, that hasn't changed. All right. That has not changed.
See, the thing about Vilma is Drew will find a way to critique a player without making it offensive. Vilma may make it a little offensive when he critiques a player.
He will. But he'll shoot it to him straight, and I think I would appreciate that.
Yeah. But do you guys think that the competitor that Drew Brees is, and you know how he is, he's never going to brag on himself. When I asked him about being an announcer, an analyst, he said, I think I'd be good at it. And he went a little extra mile in his answer. Now, do you think, guys, both answer this question, seeing Romo and seeing the, accolades that he's received, the competitor in Brees, do you think he's thinking, well, man, I could do that and I could do it better?
No question. I didn't really answer your question before. Drew Brees, just like when you compared him to Tony Romo as a quarterback, he's a much better quarterback. Drew Brees would be a much better analyst. And I don't know how many Cowboys fans we're going to have listening to this podcast, but Drew Brees is so much cooler than Tony Romo. I played with both these guys. I was in the locker room with both these guys. Tony Romo is a corny, kind of a dork, and he may give you the plays before he sees them. Well, he should. He played quarterback in the NFL forever. The only difference is they both see the play before it happens as a player. One guy did it better after he saw it. which was Drew Brees, he will be a much better analyst. I think people would like him much better. And if Tony Romo's worth $17 million, Drew Brees would be worth $30 million as an analyst. He'd be much better.
Dang, double it. Hey, look, man, I'm just trying to be on the C squad or the D squad when I'm an analyst, so I can make like $8 million. I'm cool with that. So,
Harp, you'd be great. I know I mentioned that earlier. You would be fantastic at this. You really would be.
thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'm just, I think Drew would do great, man. But it really has to. I mean, when's Drew gonna put them shoulder pads up though? Like until that, it's not gonna happen, Drew. So you can tell us how great you're gonna be as an analyst, but until you stop throwing the ball and licking your fingers before they snap it to you, which is probably disgusting. You're just doing what you're doing. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Drew's going to be great at whatever he does because he puts in the work ethic, and he has the work ethic of nobody I've ever seen before. He's always the first one there, last one to leave, and I'm sure he would do the same thing as an analyst.
Well, guys, having Brady in the NFC South now, is that going to keep them both around for a while?
Yes, Drew's going to play another year. I'm telling you, he retired. Like, trust me. Once Tom signed in Tampa Bay, now because but first it's like out of sight, out of mind. But now you're going to see each other all the time. You're going to be watching the film that Tom Brady's on, and I'm telling you, it's going to get kind of competitive. I could see that happening for sure. Shanle, what do you think?
No, I brought up that point, Harp. I said it's the worst thing that could happen for both of them because they're extremely competitive. They're both going to be out there playing until they're 50 now because neither one of them's going to want to leave. And so, yeah, I've already thought about that. Which one of them's going to say, hey, I'll leave if you leave? Maybe they might have to work out that deal.
And the biggest thing for me is that Tom Brady's arm is held on a little bit more than Drew's. Like, Brady still has a deep ball, like can get it out there. He can't move as much as Drew. And Drew can't move that great, but Drew moves better than Tom. Tom's just a big statue back there, but Drew's way more accurate. I think he is more accurate than Tom. So I think it's gives and takes on both, and that's why I think the Saints offense has gone to this much more methodical instead of first thing after a turnover, they're going downtown, and Drew's loading up the arm for the deep ball. I think they have to get back to that. And I think that's going to be a great thing. Tampa Bay, I'm really excited to see this year, guys. I hate to admit it, but I'm really excited to see this Tampa Bay team.
Yeah. Lastly, it's amazing that the Shanle clan and the Harper clan, both you guys, the kids have been unbelievably quiet during this podcast. Very impressive. Justin, we should bring back the applause because it's been amazing how the quality of sound we've had from both households. Let's give kudos to the kids and the Shanle household in Harper. But before I let you go, Roman, I want to put a bow on this 2006 replay. And Shanle, I want your answer too. In the locker room after the game, take the fans who are listening to this podcast into that locker room, what Peyton had to say, how you guys celebrated. What was the feeling, and was there a memory that stood out at all?
From the Monday night game?
Yes.
Yeah, I just remember leading up to that game. For me, that was the first time I ever played in the Superdome. Never played. I was in my 4th or 5th year. So everything was new. And I think that newness kind of took away some of the nerves for the magnitude of that game and what it meant to the city and the state. So I'm trying to navigate. I'm trying to find out where to park. I'm trying to find out all these different things. I didn't have time to think about all this other stuff. And just leading up to the game, I remember thinking, you can sense how big a game is when you walk out and there's a feeling in the air. Just like a couple years ago in the NFC Championship game with the Rams, there's a nervous energy in the air because it's win or go home. And I just remember walking out to that game and thinking, this doesn't feel like another regular season game. I've played in a lot of regular season games. It was different. Then you hear Green Day singing the Saints Are Coming song when you're coming down the tunnel. And you knew it was the closest thing that you were going to get to a Super Bowl at that point in terms of how big a moment it was. And honestly, I don't really remember. I remember after that game, I knew it was a big game for everybody, but we got to 3-0 after we beat Cleveland and Green Bay, and it was another step in the right direction. But it was all kind of a blur and things that you don't take time to appreciate because you're so worried about getting on to the next one at that time.
No, Shanle, you hit it right on, man. The newness of it for me as well. That was my first time playing the Superdome. I was a rookie, so I didn't know anything. I thought it was, just kind of taking it as a normal game aspect. And you could tell it was a different feeling in the building, right? Emotions were really running high. People were in the building extremely early. The hair on your arm could stand up. It was electric in the building. Like you just felt it. Something was different. And you look back on it, and I don't remember anything after the game. I'm sorry, Mike. I mean, the only thing I can remember is this picture that Shanle just sent where my neck looked pretty freaking swole, just to let you know.
I sent him a post-game locker room clip. He was pretty jacked.
You got to keep the stinger hot.
And but other than that, though, man, I would just remember just being able to hang out with the guys and really just celebrate that win. And just being so happy and seeing the emotion of people crying after the game. That is what I think about. Is I saw people like in the stands crying and nobody wanting to leave the stadium. And at the time, I really didn't understand why, but I get it because listen to the TV copy. You hear Spike Lee talk about, look, these people are coming here for these 3 or 4 hours to get away. And when they leave this dome, they got to go back to a FEMA trailer. Like, I forgot about that. The FEMA trailers and all of the Katrina stress that everybody had went through. Like, it was a lot. And I'm so happy and proud and just blessed to say that that team went so far that season to take people away from their hardships and sorrows for longer than what they'd ever been able to do that before. So hats off to that team. Shanle and those guys continue to win in the playoffs. And I'm just thankful that I was there in that building. And I actually get to share that with my family nowadays. And that I was actually there when the Saints organization in New Orleans turned it around, turned the tables, and we became who we are today.
Well, I didn't play a lick between the lines, but watching that game in 2006, I remember interviewing Shanle for the first time, interviewing Roman Harper at the bottom of that hill in Millsaps, interviewing Roman Harper after the Super Bowl with those big beads around his neck, and all the great segments we did at training camp. My favorite memory of Roman Harper, though, you guys were doing the simulated practices with the Patriots, and I had asked you randomly during the week, you wore that dry fit shirt under your pads of Joe. It had a picture of Joe Vitt. And it was like, what are we gonna do? Yeah, what are we going to do? And I said, I want to use that for a hit when I'm doing sideline. And you walked up a hill after a Patriots practice and brought that to me. Just another example of how you've been great over the years. So if you're listening, send a letter to ESPN right now. We want a 3-man booth in the fall. Bring back Tirico, Vilma, Harper, and Tirico. Shanle, what do you think?
Hey, I'd watch. That'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty good entertainment. 3 really good personalities to get different aspects of the game. I think that'd be a great crew. I'm all for it.
Yeah, but me and Vilma are gonna probably fight, or like I'd probably end up cussing or something. That guy. Oh,
it's good TV though. It's good TV.
Oh, he drives me up a wall. But yes, I'd love it.
Well, listen, get back to the Chinese, and I know you have a lot of homework to get to. But
we're on spring break, Mike.
That's right.
Man. Spring break. I'm about to go cut my grass, though. My wife fired the lawn people, but let me tell you something. I got this self-propel. It's game changer, all right? I don't know. Like, game changer, Mike. This self-propelled Honda, which Honda's the best lawnmower. I read up and did all this research.
Give it a shout out, Harper. We're going to get a sponsor from Honda. Give it a shout out right now.
Here we go, Honda, baby. I got the Honda 440-something, all right? It's pretty nice. Self-propel, push it down. It just flies off I'm telling you. All right. And it's got a mulch thing. So like, you know, they used to like spit out the side. You could see like the old grass when it was kind of cut, but then it was cutting it down. Now it cuts it multiple times. You don't even see it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So when's the last time you mowed your lawn?
Dude, it's been at least 4 or 5 years. I'm not lying. Today's the first day I'm cutting my grass in like 5 years. I'm not lying.
Man, we need to live stream this. I would love to see this. Tell your wife to set up a camera. I want to see this.
All right. I will.
Do it on Instagram. I want an Instagram video later on.
All right. I got you guys. I appreciate it, man. I will.
Hey, listen, all the best to your family and to you, my friend. You're always great. We look forward to having you on in the future. But it was great going down memory lane. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, Mike. Thanks, Shanle, man. Love you guys, man. Roll Tide.
See you, Harp. Thanks.
Oh, the great Roman Harper, man, from mowing lawns to perspective on the 06 game to breaking down the NFC South to kind of straddling the fence, Shanle, on the Taysom Hill thing. He's kind of like the jury's still out, I believe, is what I interpreted Roman Harper's stance on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are that way, and Harper's not going to give you a definitive answer. We all want it to work out. We all want there to be a great successor to Drew, and hopefully whoever that successor is continues to play at a high level. So I think it's more of a wishful, I'll decline comment because I hope that maybe Taysom is that guy.
Yeah. Well, more than likely, Roman Harper always delivers. He delivered again in this podcast. Speaking of more likely, Justin, you know what time it is. More likely, Justin Thomas, we bring him back in. He goes first. He's ahead of the class, and then Shanle, and then I kind of weigh in, but it's not really fair because I know the questions. 3 hypothetical questions, and we begin, it's kind of our 2006 show. We had, Shanle and Roman Harper reminisce a lot, but we've kind of asked this question in some forms, but I want to kind of bring that 2006 rookie class together. If you would really say who had the best career among these 3 guys in the 2006 rookie class, more likely, who would it be? Would it be Reggie Bush? Would it be Marcus Colston? Or would it be Jari Evans, who's probably more likely to be a Hall of Famer out of all 3? So you have Reggie Bush, Colston, or Jari Evans. More likely, who had the better overall NFL career? I'm not saying football career, because that would kind of tilt the scales to Reggie a little bit, but NFL career, those 3.
All right, so full NFL career, including
Yes.
teams they played for after 6.
Exactly,
Right.
yes.
I mean, I've always loved Marcus Colston, but I do think you have to go with Jari Evans. I mean, he wasn't in 2006. Pretty much that whole offensive line were new, and since that they were either
Jamal Brown was
rookies
the only. Jamal Brown was in.
Okay.
You had Stinchcomb, you had Fane. I mean, you had some guys, but then you had some big question marks because I know Peyton told me early on he didn't really know what he had from a lot of those guys, but he didn't really know that, as Shanle knows, with a lot of the players in that team. But they had some veterans, but they didn't know Jari would be the player he would turn out to be, obviously.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, him coming in, stepping in immediately. He had a long career. I believe he went to Green Bay after for a little bit. I think it's tough. Offensive linemen seem to be underappreciated or underrated when you think about how important they are. But I think you have to go with Jari Evans, how long he played and how well he played overall. I mean, the fact that, like Roman said, that he's a potential Hall of Famer says it all, I think.
I can't wait to hear Shanley's answer because he played with all 3 of these guys. But who more likely had the better career out of that 2006 draft class? Reggie Bush, Marcus Colston, or Jari Evans?
Well, Reggie would have had to break Emmitt Smith's rushing record with all the expectations he had set on him to, fulfill those things. But I agree. I think Jari, when you look at those 3, he's the one who has a chance to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Jari he was right there in the top 2 or 3 names when you talk about top guards in football for about 10 years. So that's hard to beat. Colston is right there with him, though. Colston was one of the most unheralded wide receivers we've seen in the past 20 years in the NFL. But I think Jari Evans out of those 3.
Yeah, I want to say Jari Evans, but I'm going to say Marcus Colston for a few reasons. I think Roman had a great point. If Colston would have pushed himself a little more, I think, and I'm not saying that would have been the right thing to do. He's got to be himself. But I think Marcus Colston, I mean, I just love his story. And Jari Evans has a great story, too. We've had him on the podcast. We've had Marcus on the podcast. Reggie, we're still waiting, by the way. So if you're listening, anytime, my friend, jump on with us. But Marcus Colston, to me, just the numbers he put up and the impact that he made immediately in the Sean Payton offense. I mean, Sean Payton, after not having a good OTA, he pointed at training camp, and he knew Marcus Colston was going to be a great player right away. So just to me, the numbers he put up, I think in some ways, if Colston had the personality of a Chad Johnson or a Keyshawn Johnson, and I think he had a better career than both those guys in a lot of ways, it'd be interesting to see the national perception of Marcus Colston. To this day, I'm shocked that he's not a Pro Bowler. I think most fans just assume he was, and many in the media assume he was too, Shanle. That's an amazing thing, but I think it's a testament to his personality and the fact that he wasn't a me guy as well.
Yeah, and there's no doubt we in Who Dat Nation appreciate everything Marcus Colston brought. He's going to be in the Ring of Honor someday, one of the most profiled Saints players ever when it's all said and done. But it is a shame in the national media landscape, he didn't get the credit he deserved. And a lot of it is because he wasn't vocal. He put up good numbers, but he also played in an era where you had Terrell Owens, Mr. Flamboyant. Chad Johnson was always doing something crazy. Marvin Harrison was a quiet guy, but he was putting up tons of numbers with Peyton Manning. So it was a very competitive time when you look at the peers that he was facing or going toe-to-toe with every Sunday during his career.
It's still amazing. You throw Ninkovich in there, the 2006 draft class, and everybody was so excited about Reggie. Nobody would have predicted from top to bottom. It was so talented. All right, more likely number 2. I heard Tom Brady's interview with Howard Stern, which you talk about an odd couple. I mean, boy, Tom Brady loves Howard Stern. He couldn't have said more nice things to Stern during the interview. But my more likely question, and one thing that he said during the interview was, he was really respectful to Bill Belichick about, the impact he had, but you also felt a liberation with Tom Brady that he gets to get out of there and kind of prove that he can be the guy. But I thought the interesting thing that he said was, he does things I can't do. I do things he can't do. He can't play quarterback. I can't coach like that. We've talked about this with Breeze and Peyton. But, many consider Belichick to be the best head coach of all time. Many consider Tom Brady to be the best quarterback of all time. Is it more Brady? Is it more Belichick? Or is it both? Kind of a multiple choice question. Do you think it was one or the other, or it was both, Justin?
Well, I mean, outside of his tenure with the Browns, which he was starting to turn around.
Way under 500 with the Browns, though, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, he assembled a really good coaching staff that went on to, be prolific. Nick Saban and others, but we really only have his tenure with the Patriots, and most of that tenure has been with Tom Brady. So I think it's going to be many years later before we'll be able to know for sure. I think there's a little bit of truth in what Tom Brady says in that, it's probably a little bit of both. But I mean, there's no denying that Bill Belichick obviously is a super talented coach. I mean, they've won 6 Super Bowls, going 9 times, I believe. I mean, that's unheard of in the amount of time that he's been there. I do think that, and I think this is what I'm looking forward most. Not only Tom Brady, seeing him on a different team, but seeing what Bill Belichick can do without Tom. If it really is more Tom, or if it was Bill, I do think Bill will probably be successful, maybe not as successful with Tom, but I don't think all of a sudden they're going to be, 6-11 or, have a horrible record. So I do think Bill is a really good coach.
All right, so you go with both.
Yeah, I think it is going to be a little bit of both.
Okay. Shanle, what say you?
Yeah, it is a combination of both, but I don't want to give that as an answer. As Justin was talking, I was thinking I want to go one way or the other on this, and I think it's more Belichick. And
Wow.
And I'm going to say that because I know everybody throws the Cleveland Browns thing in Belichick's face, but you got to look at the Cleveland Browns. They're a dysfunctional organization. Let me ask you this: if Tom Brady gets drafted in the 6th round to the Cleveland Browns, does he have the career he has? I say absolutely not. So you needed the two at the time. I think Bill Belichick and his genius, because when you look at what he did with the Giants when they played the spread offenses in the early 90s, he was an outstanding defense coordinator, a mastermind. He allowed Tom Brady to be the game manager that he was early in his career because he built such a good defense and team around him. So I think Belichick's genius allowed Tom Brady to grow slowly into the player he became. And I don't think if he got drafted other places, he would have had the luxury of having that time and having that franchise around him that Belichick brought. So I'm going to go with Belichick.
Interesting. I think Belichick and Brady are as unusual a combination as maybe Stern and Brady in a lot of ways, personality-wise. I mean, it's kind of interesting how those guys coexisted for many years. But sometimes, as you know, Shanle, you have to have that in the NFL. I do think this, though, is as much praise as Tom Brady gets. Boy, there are a lot of Brady haters out there, and I really have never understood that. I've always felt like he's a pretty straight-up guy. I think it's a lot of jealousy for the most part, and if you're on top, of course you're going to be hated because people want to see you lose. But I do think, in a weird way, I don't know if you agree with me on this, I think Belichick is great. I think he's the best coach of all time. It's amazing what he's done. Like Sean Payton in a lot of ways, they don't have all these weapons. And they had Gronk and they had Moss, but they didn't win a Super Bowl with Moss. They won them with the Edelmans. And a lot of those guys they drafted or knew when to pick up or get a guy like Welker. But I think Tom Brady, to me, in a lot of ways, and this may sound nuts, but because of Belichick, doesn't get the credit he deserves. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, and everybody's always going to take the player because you look at it, it's harder to do what these elite quarterbacks are doing than I think the elite coaches. And people are always going to side with who's doing it physically on the field. But to me, Bill Belichick is going to have the advantage of the situation. He has a much higher chance of having success after this breakup than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not going to get better with age. And what's he have? A few years at most, a couple years?
Maybe.
And he's just going to continue to get older. It's going to be harder for him to win this back and forth with who should get more credit. And that's why I think Belichick's going to win it in the long run, because he can coach for 10 more years if he wants. And all he needs to do is win maybe one more Super Bowl without Tom Brady to win that argument.
One thing I like using the word never too much, but I can almost with confidence say I could never see Drew Brees with Howard Stern.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. All right, more likely number 3. Short answer from Shanle. I'd love to read his mind right now. Last question and more likely. We talked about the uniforms of Roman Harper. Give me your worst uniform. The old Bucs uniforms or the new Falcons uniforms?
You talk about the creamsicles?
It could be the creamsicles.
Or you're talking about
the ones they just replaced, which I think I love the creamsicles, frankly. But the Madden uniforms or the XFL like uniforms. A lot of people are ripping the Falcons for their new uniforms. A lot of people rip the Bucs for their old uniforms. More likely, which one is worse?
I think the old Bucs uniforms were pretty bad. I mean, they had the weird like digital clock numbers on the jerseys. The colors were a little odd. I mean, I frankly like the new Bucs uniforms, and it's kind of sad that, well, not sad, I guess we should expect it, but now it looks like the Falcons are going to have the worst uniforms in the division. So, but I still think the old Bucs uniforms were worse than the new Falcons ones.
Shanle, what do you think?
I so bad want to say Atlanta has the worst of everything. How do you mess up? You have black, red, and white as colors. You should have some of the best uniforms in the NFL, and they messed it up. They completely messed it up. But I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers' old uniforms remind me of, the app where you take two people and you can put them together and it shows you what they would look like if they had a kid. That's what somebody did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers old uniforms, like chrome face masks with a little piping of the creamsicle in the uniform. It was horrible. I'm so glad they got rid of those things, went back to the pewter. I actually like their new uniforms.
This is funny because Drew Brees described Shanle very well. I'm paraphrasing here, but he's quiet, yet he has something to say. He just says it in a way that he doesn't, he says it in a good way. You're not going to, you're like the Marcus Colston in a way, you're not bringing attention to yourself, but you get your point across. And that was a perfect example. I never know what Shanle is going to say. That was good stuff, Shanle. Good comparison. I love that.
I appreciate it.
Well, listen, we'd like to thank our friend Roman Harper. He delivered. We knew he would. Great stuff from Shanle, not only on Steve Gleason, but that 2006 replay. Justin Thomas, we appreciate your work as always. And we're going to have a new question on the Twitter poll, so check that out. What's the Twitter handle again?
@Dundad Podcast.
That's right. And catch us on all of the platforms. We're on Spotify. We're on Stitcher. We're on iTunes. Anywhere they have podcasts, we're on. So please give us feedback. Please give us a good rating if you like us, and subscribe. We'd appreciate that. So we'll be back next week with some more news, but it'll be hard to top this show because that was fun looking back. But until next time, for Scott Shanle and Justin Thomas, I'm merely Mike Nabors.